Testing 1, 2. Okay, we have audio. So, make sure it's working here. What I wanted to do here is a little bit of voltage current relationship within a impeding coil. So I'm going to draw the coil like this. Wait, hold on. I'm going to draw the coil like so. And right next to it, I'm going to put another drawing of a pipe shaped the same way. Which is going to be filled with water. So we're going to fill this side with water and this side with current, and use the two examples to explain voltage and pressure. So you have 10 pounds of water in a bucket above this, just 10 pounds of water, the pressure down the pipe. The water will fill up the pipe with, and there's the 10 pound of pressure, where the 10 pounds of pressure can lift that much more above sea level. So if this is your sea level line, and this is above sea level, 10 pounds brings it up 10 centimeters or whatever. A certain amount of water filling up this pipe, which has a certain amount of diameter and a certain amount of cc's, cubic centimeters, to be available to put water in there. So basically the 10 pounds of water fills up the space drawn here. There's your 10 pounds of water. It fills up that space. So on the other side you have 10, let's say 10 milliamps. And instead of gravity being near pressure, it's resistance. Sorry, instead of gravity being your impedance, it's the coil resistance now. So if this coil has, let's say, 10,000 ohms, see here, 10 milliamps. All right, let's say you're giving it 10 milliamps, 10 volts. As you can see here, on the right side, the water, the 10 pounds of water, is not enough to go out the top of the other of the pipe and overflow, or to make the water to the other end of the pipe because of the gravity resisting it getting there. So that's what the coil impedance does with the 10 milliamps trying to get through this 10 kilo ohm coil. It it gets so far, with saturating the coil, the 10 milliamps. Now this all happens within the same time frame, seconds or whatever. Everything here is a 10-second event. Let me just do this, hold on. 10 seconds, time pass. Okay, and there's your, hey, it does it. So this is 10 seconds of time in between the two situations, one being a pipe with a certain amount of, space, and another being a certain amount of mass or containing size to hold the pressure, and the coil has a certain amount of mass to hold a certain pressure as well. As your 10 pounds of force on the water on the right, what's going on here, is the same 10 volts on the left here, same amount of force, 10 pounds of water, 10 volts. We're using, the equal values of potential with the water on the right and the voltage on the left. We're assuming they're the equal values in potential between the two forms of energy or matter or whatever. So when you have 10 volts on a 10 kilo ohm coil, if you divide 10 divided by 10,000, your current is 110, 1 milliamp. 1 milliamp, okay, can get through this coil. So it's not 10, it's 1. One milliamp is all that can get through the coil because it has 10 kilo ohms of resistance. So now, that 1 milliamp is, in 10 seconds of time, it might get to saturate this coil this far, you know? You give it another 10 seconds and it, you know, so that's saturation. Well, however long it takes to saturate this coil with current, with that 1 milliamp, doesn't matter because you still have the 10 volts of pressure behind it. So let's say in 10 seconds, it saturates halfway through the coil, the 1 milliamp. You know, but the 10 volts is registering across the coil because you're placing it there. You're connecting 10 volts to the coil, 10 volts plus on one side and 10 volts minus on the other. So in a sense, the voltage is instantaneous. It's reading, but the current has to saturate the coil, has to push through this resistance. And that's why the current lags by 90 degrees, because there's resistance in all these inductive materials. The same resistance that's found in the material of the coil is performing the same task as the water and on the right here, you know, as far as getting the water over the top and to the other end of the pipe or the other end of the coil. 10 pounds of force is not enough, in my opinion. Okay, so if you change, you know, this 10 volts on the left to, let's say, 100 volts, and now it's a different story. You know, you're going to be able to push more amps. So if you divide 100 divided by 10 kilo ohms, you're going to have 10 milliamps. See? So that's not a huge increase. And that's mainly because you've got a really high resistance here on this coil. So you went from, you know, 1 milliamp to 10. I don't know why I had to do the calculator on that, but now it's 10 milliamps, right? Because you gave it 100 volts of pressure. Now, again, the 100 volts is going to read across this coil instantaneously, unless you have more than one coil in series and they have different impedances and you divide the voltage. You're going to have 100 volts positive on one end of the coil and 100 volts negative on the other. Instantaneous, because you're putting the voltage there. That's where you connect the voltage. But the current, the 10 milliamps now, because you got 100 volts, within 10 seconds, it can go a lot further, you know, through the coil and saturate the coil faster and, in my opinion, make it out the other end. The current. Catch up 90 degrees. All right, that's just all I had to say on this. And anybody wants to add to this thought, let me know. I'll continue with the live stream now. Where is that?
Do it. 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 Who is doing it? Do it. Do it. All of it. Do it. Come on, do it now.
You got two ways to do this. You can build it up in a capacitor, catch it, discharge it into the battery, and then you want to repeat this process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source.
Always make sure your audio is working. Testing 1, 2. All right, so I got another example here. Of a voltage current relationship. And what we have here is a lake sitting with 1,000, how do I put this? 1 million gallons of water, or you can call that 1 million amps. So in the lake, that 1 milliamps, oops, hold on a second. Inside the lake, you have that 1 million amps sitting there, right? It's not moving. It's level. As you can see, it's level. When that, the only way to get those amps to move out of that lake or the water is you have to let me show you. Layer. Okay. Now where was it? Layer. Transform. Arbitrary rotation. So what you have to do is give the lake an angle. You have to tilt it. Okay? And let's say you tilt it. I'm going to tilt it precisely 45. And there is your 45 degrees right there. Okay? Okay, so that's done. Okay, so I just tilted the lake. Now the water can flow with the equivalent force related to 45 degrees. You draw the line here. Right, and there is your 45 degrees. And that's the pressure related to 45 degrees, whatever that is. Let's say it's 45 volts. Okay, but before you tilted the lake, it was level and it had 0 volts. Because there's no angle. And that's how I relate voltage to angular velocity or angular pressure, angular, whatever you want to call it. Gravity, angular, angles. The voltage is the actual angle. You can call it angle or you can call it pressure. But you know, when you give the lake an angle, why isn't this stepping backwards? Oops. So yeah, when you give the lake an angle, the water can leave. It can move. The current can flow. The river current, the water current. And that's just that. I just wanted to throw that out there. That's the relationship I draw from voltage to amperage. You can have a bunch of amps sitting in a battery, not moving. Until you provide a resistive load, you're not giving those amps angular momentum. So that's the best way I can put it to see how I see it, you know. That's how I see the voltage related to current. You know, 0 volts, no current flows. At the same time, the resistance will impede the current. Testing. Okay. This one is about superconductors. Again, this is a topic. This is a subject that's been, for some reason, keeps crossing my mind when I think of Ohm's law. Hold on a second here. All right, this is screw the audio. So Ohm's law and superconductors. What is it about those two things? Damn, are you kidding me? I gotta do this. Hold on. No wonder. Okay, so Ohm's law and superconductors. Unfortunately, or fortunately, superconductors have, technically, they're supposed to have zero resistance or close to it. But in a calculator, you can't divide by zero. So let's see here. Let's say you got a 100 volts constant current. And you're sending it through a superconductor with 0.000001 ohms. Okay, so you divide your 100 volts by that decimal number there to get your current capacity across that superconductor. So 100 divided by 0.000001 ohms equals 100 million amps. Now let me just write that down. You guys are going to like this. Sorry, 100 million amps can flow across this superconductor using 100 volts and 0.000001 ohms of resistance on that superconductor. Okay, so let me just do that. Put that aside. And look over here. Merge down. Okay. All right, so here's your Ohm's law. Let me draw that a little bigger because I need to add arrows. It's your Ohm's wheel, they call it. Very easy to remember this. V over I times R. I is your current, R is your resistance, V is your volts. So when your volts goes up, your current goes down, and your resistance goes up. And when the volts goes down, damn it, I need to do this again. Hold on. Let me try this another way. And, okay, so there's your Ohm's wheel, and when when the voltage goes up, current goes down. Resistance goes up, and when the voltage goes down, I just did this wrong again. Up, resistance goes up. So I put the arrow down here. Let me try a different color for the arrows. When the voltage goes up, the current goes down, and the resistance goes up. And when the voltage goes down, current goes up, resistance goes down. Now, the easy way to understand this, give me 1 second. Yeah, okay. The easy way to understand this, right about now, you're asking, same question I asked. How does the resistance go down when the current goes up? How is that possible? That doesn't make sense. Well, it does when you think of it this way. Why does the resistance go down when the current goes up? Because When your current increases across the inductor, the ions in the material begin to subside to the force of that's pushing the current through. In other words, the coil begins to allow the current to flow now, and it does that by lowering its resistance. And why does the coil why does its resistance lower? Because as time is moving forward, more and more of those ions in the copper material are being aligned in the correct alignment with each other. And as more and more ions get aligned, the resistance goes down. But that takes time, and there's a finite level of how far down the coil will lower its resistance, or how many ions you are able to align with each other. There's always going to be some ions that will not align. They'll refuse to align up. Now, that's not the case in the superconductor, though. They will all align in theory. I don't think we have superconductors that align every single ion in the material as the theory says that it should, that defines what a superconductor is. But we have materials that are close to what a superconductor is. So maybe 0.000001 ohms on it instead of 0. If it were 0, you'd have a lot more than 100 million amps capacity on that conductor. Now, that's fine. Your conductor can have that capacity to transfer that much amps. Now, let me get to this drone subject and why I think this is relevant. And it just occurred to me, actually, why people's drones are powering down or losing power when they come close to a whatever it is they're seeing up there, orbs, whatever, UFOs, because these craft are powered by superconductors. That's why. Anything that has energy in it that comes close to a superconductor, that energy is going to want to go through that superconductor, straight out of your battery, through the air, into that superconductor. It's going to want to go there because it's a superconductor, and it's the only superconductor within range. If you get even close enough, if you just be within range of a superconductor, your batteries are going to drain. So if you put a battery to a superconductor, let's say this is your superconductor here, a straight piece of superconducting sub-zero tungsten gold alloy or whatever, and you have a battery sending its amps through it at 12 volts, but the battery has 1 amp in it. Okay, although this superconductor can handle 100 million amps, it's not going to have those amps when you connect this battery. It's just going to be 1 amp going through that superconductor. And when you send the full amp from your battery, and it does transmit through the superconductor by however means, wireless or whatever, which can be done through potential, I guess, fields and poles or whatever, magnetic. If these crafts are powered by superconductors, they're going to have a strong field. And if they got energy going through them, through the superconductor, like this battery is sending its plus, to minus, that's going to create a magnetic field, that energy flow. to the superconductor. And that magnetic field is going to extend pretty far. And anything that gets within range, let's say you're a drone that you're trying to get a snapshot of this thing, your drone battery is going to fall down because it has no power, because it came too close to this field, the field. And that's all you need to do is get within range of the field emanated by the superconductor for your energy, whatever your energy has that you put inside the field, will drain through the superconductor because it's a superconductor. It's the path of least resistance. The actual circuitry of your drone has more resistance than the field it entered. That's how I can put it, so the energy is going to drain out of your drone and fall. But that's off topic, sort of, still on topic, because this is about superconductors. I just think that these crafts that's how they drain power from your devices when you get too close. They have superconductors in them. Anyway, Ohm's law, and now you have a superconductor. Does Ohm's law apply? No, because technically a superconductor has zero resistance. And if you try to divide anything by zero, you will get an error saying you cannot do that. Because you can't. So Ohm's law does not apply to a superconductor. It applies to things with resistance, because one of the variables in this formula is resistance. And a superconductor technically doesn't have that. So that's just a quick rant on Ohm's law and and superconductors. What I think, so coming back to the lake and the tilting of the lake and creating your voltage by tilting the lake, and now whatever water is in that lake is your amps, can now flow like a current because it's tilted with voltage degrees, and now the lake, its current is not static anymore, it's dynamic. When it comes to a superconductor, you don't really need much volts to get your energy through. In my opinion, I think a superconductor, you don't need a lot of pressure to send energy through it. And if you did have a lot of voltage to send energy through a superconductor, you can just imagine the kinds of things that would occur regarding phenomenon or whatever, electrical phenomenon. And yeah, experiments we need to do with superconductors. Technically speaking, the superconductor does the same thing that Leeds-Gallman perpetual magnet holder does, PMH, which I find is amazing too. You just wrap a coil around it and give it a quick pulse of charge from the 9-volt battery. And this is a piece of metal here, and this is a piece of metal. And when you give it the charge, the plate here at the bottom sticks to the U piece by perpetual magnetism. You remove the charge and it stays stuck. When you remove the plate, it's gone. The energy is gone. Whatever's going on there, it's a proof positive concept demonstrated many times in this PMH device that you can perpetually cycle or hold a magnetic field perpetually in a loop. So if you took this superconductor and you looped it two pieces of superconductor, one that's straight, one curved, and you wrapped the coil around it and did the same thing, you would have the full amount of whatever that pulse was perpetually flowing now, because it's a superconductor. So in the bottom example, it's not a superconductor. The top example, it is a superconductor. You have a whole different scenario here now. You pulsed it, the bottom one, with 10 volts, 1 amp, or 1 milliamp, or let's say, 10 volts, 100, let's say 10 volts, 200 milliamps is what you were able to get through the coil. So if the coil on the top is the same coil on the bottom, you're not going to have any difference going on here. So the coil on the top has to also be a superconductor. And so the battery that pulsed the coil is a 10 volt battery, but it has 10 amps in it. But because the coil has some resistance, you only got 200 milliamps of that 10 amps through the coil. The rest of the amps stayed in the battery. But if it's a superconductor coil wrapped around a superconductor piece of metal, and you energize a superconducting coil with a 10 volt, 10 amp battery, the full 10 amps is going to go through that superconducting coil and send a magnetic field through the superconducting U piece, which will permanently cycle through the straight piece. Doesn't have to be U and straight. You can do this with a toroidal superconducting core as well. But as soon as you send the 10 volts from a 10 amp source battery through a superconducting coil, the full 10 amps and 10 volts is going to get through there, and it's going to perpetually cycle through this superconducting PMH. What is 10 divided by 0.000001 ohms? It is 10 million amps. So if you multiply 10 million times your volts, which is 10, you get 100 million watts. Perpetually flowing. Okay, I've said enough.